A very good morning to you and welcome to From the Dailies on ECWA TV Africa, where we review stories making headline on the national dailies. My name is Bok Yipeng and I'll be taking on this ride with Tosin Owolabi. Tosin, good morning.
Good morning, Bok.
How was your night?
Fine, and yours?
It was fine, thank God.
Thank God, too.
All right, let's move on to the papers of today.
And for the first paper, we have Nigerian Tribune. Here, on a sad note, we have Lassa fever killed 725 in 5 years. With the rider, disease prevalent in Ondo, Edo, Ebonyi. Poor preparation, weak response system responsible for high fertility rates. And this is a report coming from an expert. World Health Organization approves first malaria vaccine. In order to curb the malaria epidemic in Africa, the World Health Organization has endorsed the first malaria vaccine for children. Briefing newsmen on Wednesday, Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros, said the long-awaited malaria vaccine for children is a breakthrough for science, child health, and malaria control. He added that the endorsement of the vaccine followed a 2-year vaccine program that involved children in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. The World Health Organization boss expressed optimism that the vaccine would improve efforts on malaria prevention in Africa and save thousands of children. The big story on the Nigerian Tribune: lawyers, Afenifere Ohaneze, PDP questions federal government threat of state of emergency in Anambra. Unity Forum kicks over zoning committee for Oyo APC Congress. The rider, they should come up with best way to go about it, coming from Alao Akala. Over 14.3 Nigerians abuse drug, coming from the NDLEA boss. Says drug worth 100 billion naira seized in 8 months. 1 of 4 drug users is female, he added. With full details in page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. PDP zoning issues damage shape NEC meeting today. Push for Northern Muslim as chairman, Southern Christian as secretary. The picture story on Nigerian Tribune: Ogun State chairman of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Emmanuel Bankole, and some residents of Sango-Ota protesting over the bad state of Lagos-Ota-Abeokuta highway in Sango-Ota on Wednesday. And still on Nigerian Tribune for the last story, we will borrow more to finance 6.258 trillion naira 2022 budget deficit coming from FEC. OK's 16.39 trillion naira proposal as Buhari presents to National Assembly today. Despite outcry and protest against the administration penchant for frequent borrowing, the federal government yesterday hinted of its plan to borrow more to finance the 6.258 trillion naira deficit in the proposed 2022 budget. This was disclosed after the Federal Executive Council approved 16.39 trillion naira for the 2022 appropriation bill. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, who briefed newsmen, stated that the administration will continue to borrow to fund infrastructure projects as the government does not get much from its revenue sources. Justifying government's position, Ahmed said Nigerians' revenue could barely accommodate services, noting that despite the concern, its borrowing are still within the acceptable limit as the total money borrowed as at July 22nd was 23% of the gross domestic product. If we just depend on the revenue that we get, even though our revenues have increased, the operational expenditure of government, including salaries and other overhead, is barely covered or swallowed up by the revenue. So we need to borrow to be able to build this project that will ensure that we are able to develop on a sustainable basis. Nigerians' borrowing has been of great concern and has elicited a lot of discussion. But if you look at the total size of the borrowing, it is still within healthy and sustainable limits. As at July 2021, the total borrowing was 23%. We do not have problem of revenue. Our revenues have been increasing. We just reported to FEC that revenues from non-oil has performed as July at the rate of 111%, which means outperformance and appropriated budget, but our expenditure, especially staff emoluments, have been increased at a very fast rate, making it difficult to cope with funding of government. So what we have to do is a combination of cutting down our costs as well as increasing revenues to be able to cope with all that is required for government to do, including salaries, pension, debt services and capital expenditure. The minister said council also noted the changes in the 2022 to 2024 fiscal projection based on implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 and other necessary expenditure that should be accommodated in the 2022 budget. Ahead of today's budget presentation to the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari, the Senate yesterday hurriedly approved the President's revised submission of the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan, after receiving the revised submission, referred it to the Committee on Finance on Tuesday for expeditious consideration within 24 hours. Hence, the approval of the revised framework yesterday followed the hasty consideration of the report by the Committee on Finance. And that's all concerning the borrowing and also the budget deficit for the Federal Executive Council. And that's all the news making headlines on Nigerian Tribune.
And on this day, the big story says federal government considers emergency rule in Anambra to protect electoral process. Counter groups likely in Southeast against IPOB, says Umahi. Abga, PDP, Samba disagree with Malami. Afenifere describes consideration as self-indicting. Emergency rule does not empower president to remove governor, says Falana. Arise news to facilitate availability of new sickle cell drug in Nigeria. U.S. malls release of emergency reserves to curb rising oil prices. History as World Health Organization approves world's first malaria vaccine. And the last story here says, will borrow to finance 6.258 trillion naira 2022 proposed budget deficit, says federal government. And more detail of this story is on page 5. And we also have a picture story here on consolidating investments in the era of PIA. You want to know more on these stories, do well to get this day newspaper of today, Thursday, 7th October 2021, and read more details of stories that interest you. You can call us later on the show as our phone lines will be open. Let's hear your views.
And for the next story, which is the Punch newspaper, Nigeria lost 221.64 billion naira in July to oil production stoppages. And this is coming from NNPC with details in page 30. Federal government considers taking states to Supreme Court over VAT saga. And Anambra killings. PDP alleges rigging plot. Obianu kicks as federal government mulls emergency rule. Why didn't you declare emergency in Borno? Abga challenges federal government. The Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami says drastic actions may be taken if the continued killing and violence in Anambra State does not stop. Malami disclosed that the federal government may declare a state of emergency in the southeast states to ensure that the forthcoming governorship election holds. The minister said the government has resolved that the November 6 election will take place, adding that the government is determined to ensure a hitch-free election in Anambra. Briefing newsmen on Wednesday after the Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, Malami noted that the security of lives and properties of Nigerians living in Anambra is paramount to the government. The minister stated that a state of emergency may be declared in the state if national security is attacked and the sanctity of the constitutionally guaranteed democracy is threatened. Still on the Punch newspaper, 500 Nigerians lose job as United Arab Emirates declines renewal of work visas. Diesel price jumps to 320 naira per litre. Job losses looms, with details in page 30 of the Punch. And the big story on high budget deficit. Don't harm our future, expert warns government. Federal government plans more loans. The rider, Naira will fall further, inflation will rise. Sorry, I take it again. Naira will fall further, inflation will rise. Debt servicing will worsen, coming from an expert. Government will continue to borrow to finance project. No money, says minister. Everywhere I go, I'm asked to contest 2023 presidential seat. If you want really interested in knowing who is saying this, you visit the Punch newspaper. And IBEDC throws communities into darkness. Residents scares officials with sacrifice. Court summons Fani Kayode's ex-wife over alleged document falsification. Female ex-NIS officer arrested for scamming job seekers, collecting 34 million naira. Lagos-Abeokuta Highway, protesters threaten to ground Ogun, issues 21-day ultimatum. 2 Randi Ekiti men remanded for scaling fence, raping 16-year-old in mother's room. And can reconstitute prayer panel against killing and kidnapping and others. While the picture story, Afghan at the passport office in Kabul, Afghanistan, after Taliban announced the resumption of issuance of passports to the citizens on Wednesday. And that's all the stories making headlines on the Punch newspaper.
And up next is The Guardian. The big story is still on 2022 budget. Expect more borrowing to finance 6.258 trillion naira deficit, says federal government. Senate hastily OK's revised fiscal framework, approves 16.39 trillion naira budget for 2022. Buhari presents ambitious appropriation amid weak 2021 budget performance. 16 trillion naira spending plan amounts to overtrading, says Adonri. PDP kicks as federal government threatens emergency rule in Anambra over insecurity. Politicians dump SUVs for bullion vans ahead of election. Federal government's threat of emergency rule self-indictment, says Afenifere. Other groups may emerge to counter IPOB in Southeast, Umahi warns. 2 Randi Ekiti men remanded for scaling fence, raping 16-year-old in mother's room. And can reconstitute prayer panel against killing and kidnapping and others. While the picture story, Afghan at the passport office in Kabul, Afghanistan, after Taliban announced the resumption of issuance of passports to the citizens on Wednesday. And that's all the stories making headlines on the Punch newspaper. And up next is The Guardian. The big story is still on 2022 budget. Expect more borrowing to finance 6.258 trillion naira deficit, says federal government. You can't stop sit at home. You can't stop sit at home order, IPOB replies Southeast governors. Emergency rule again does not empower Buhari to remove Anambra governor, says Falana. At a time when campaign activities should be fast-paced ahead of November 6 governorship election in Anambra State, with candidates doing all to woo voters. There's a chill pervading the length and breadth of the state as political gladiators recline to watch unfolding developments. And yesterday, the federal government threatened to declare a state of emergency if security situation in the state does not improve. Finally, WHO okays first malaria vaccine for most vulnerable children. That's a good news coming from the World Health Organization. ECWA committee report split northern PDP leaders ahead of NEC meeting. Bandits kill 16 persons, loot race houses in Katsina. Wike canvasses upward review of revenue allocation to states. More detail you can find on page 9 of The Guardian. The last story here says Warri monarchs outlawing of Ologbosere title elicits wide acceptance. Details you can still find on page 9 of the Guardian newspaper. And we have a picture story here. You want to know what the picture is saying, do well to get the Guardian newspaper and read more details of the story. That's all. The story is making headline on the Guardian.
Thank you, Bok. Moving to Daily Sun newspaper. Other groups may emerge to counter IPOB in Southeast, coming from Dave Umahi, who wants to give agitators, bandits space to operate in Abia, coming from the army. The Sun Awards were honored to be choosing Ezeibo and Onukwo. The big story says federal government threatens state of emergency in Anambra. State government, PDP, Ohaneze, Iwanuwanya, others kick. Reprieve for patients as doctors resume. Make use of PIA to deepen investments, Buhari tells Exxon Mobil. World Bank projects Nigerians' growth to 2022-2023 at below 4%. Coming from Anambra State, ABGA begins local government campaign rally. Lagos names housing estate after late Ndubisi Kanu, with details in page 28 of the Daily Sun newspaper. And for the picture story here, the managing director, editor-in-chief, The Sun Publishing Limited, Mr. Unoha Uke, presenting letters of award to Chief Executive Officer, Slot System Limited, Engineer Nnamdi Ezeibo, and Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Seahorse Lubricant Industry, Chief Ebuka Onunko in Lagos and Anambra State. That's all for the Daily Sun newspaper.
Thank you, Tosin. And moving on to The Nation, still on borrowings. Minister, government will borrow to fund 6.2 trillion naira budget deficit. Revenue not enough for critical projects. Buhari presents 16.39 trillion naira estimates today. Petrol landing costs hit 264 naira per litre. Subsidy now 102.65 naira per litre. State of emergency likely in Anambra. Sanwo-Olu ex-governors eulogize Ndubisi Kanu. Protest in Ogun over Abeokuta Lagos Road. On Anambra 2021, APC berates Obiano over campaign. ZLP, nobody can subvert people's will. Ozigbo seeks cooperation among Southeast states. House seeks review of judges' salary. And the last story here says showdown likely at PDP NEC meeting over zoning. That's all the stories making headline on the Nation newspaper today.
And for first newspaper, we have Afenifere who won't join IPOB to shut down Nigeria. 2023, Ebonyi PDP membership hits 800,000. Anti-open grazing, Akwa Ibom, government raises compliance team. And Niger government appoints Barrow as Kantagora Emir. Ogun gets new CP, Ajogun retires. Post-strike, federal government approves 47 billion naira hazard allowance for doctors. And coming from Anambra state of emergency likely says federal government seeks to ensure next governorship election holds. Army assures of peace in southern Kaduna. And racism, U.S. court awards ex-black employee $137 million in damages. Buhari, Jonathan in closed-door meeting. President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday evening met with former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Reports that the duo met behind closed doors inside the presidential villa Abuja after the meeting of the weekly Federal Executive Council. Jonathan, who arrived for the meeting at about 4 p.m., did not speak with State House correspondents at the end of the meeting. As of the time of filing this report, the presidency also did not disclose the agenda for the meeting. We just hope that the outcome will be of the benefit of Nigerians. That's all for the first newspaper.
And up next is Business Day. Dangote, Nestle, others leave stock market first time in 8 months. How age as job criterion worsens Nigeria's unemployment crisis. And the last story here says South Africa's digital COVID vaccine certificate points was for Nigeria. You want to know who is saying this and why he's saying this? Do well to get the Business Day and read more details. That's all the stories making headline on the This Day newspaper for today, 7th October 2021. And that's all the papers we will be reviewing today. We'll take a break now and we will be right back. Please stay with us.
Gombe Music Ministers Seminar and Multimedia Training. Plan and register to be at the ECWA TV Music Ministers Seminar and Multimedia Training Gombe on the 14th October 2021 at ECWA Good News GRA Gombe, Gombe State, Nigeria. At 10 a.m. prompt, the seminar is structured to enlighten on voice training, harmony/melody, music presentation, skills and coordination, the music ministry, music and worship. The multimedia training will host topics on multi-camera production, camera operation, live sound, scripting for church service, video editing, proper use of projector, and basic lighting. Registration starts at 8:30 a.m. with 1,000 naira only, and payment is on arrival.
You're welcome back, and many thanks for still staying with us. It's still from the dailies, where we review stories making headlines on our national dailies. Our phone lines are open. You can call us. Let's hear your views on stories that interest you on the papers we reviewed this morning. And looking at this story, Tosin, on this day newspaper, Arise News to facilitate availability of sickle cell drug in Nigeria. I believe this is a good step forward, looking at tackling the issue of sickle cell in Nigeria. And just like we spoke about it some days back on the show, that sickle cell is a disease that can be managed, it's a disease that can be avoided. We know the precautionary measures, and it's best for us to take these steps forward to ensure that we prevent children from having this disease. And now we can see that the drug is going to be made available, and we just pray that by the grace of God it will be made available and people with this disease will be cured from it, because it's really a killer disease that for people who don't even have much to sustain themselves on daily basis, you can't even take your loved ones to the hospital. And if you see the struggle and the pain that these people with this disease go through, it's really disheartening. It's really sad. I had a cousin who had it, and really it was not a good experience, and we lost her to the cold hands of death. It's really sad and disheartening. I just pray that we'll reach to the bottom of it, and we will come to a day soon that Nigeria will be free of sickle cell by the grace of God.
Yes, and it's really commendable when we see how we're trying to propagate and look out for drugs that will help us in solving all these diseases. And now we can see what World Health Organization is doing in bringing out medicine for malaria for children. We know that malaria also is a killer sickness. Also, it's killing people and it's taking lives very rapidly. But now we can see that all those drugs are now available for people to be able to take to prevent themselves from all this, from malaria and even from the sickle cell. Even as an individual, now we need to take the bold step, because we know our parents, out of ignorance, they did that, and now we are sensitized, and we need to take the bold step to kick against sickle cell. And we just hope that this medicine that are available will go out even to those even at the grassroots level, because even at the grassroots level we have people who are suffering from the sickle cell. So we just hope that these drugs will get out to them, and they'll be able to use it to be able to kick against sickle cell and even malaria in the country. Then looking at the story in our first newspaper, where Anambra, where they're talking about declaring Anambra State as a state of emergency because of the ongoing problem, and we know that it's happening in Anambra State. And we know that the election is coming forth, and it's coming very fast. November 6th, we'll have the governorship election in Anambra State. And from today, the local government campaign has kicked off in Anambra State, talking about declaring that state of emergency. But if we really need to say the truth to ourselves, that means we do declare. We have a call. Good morning. Hello, good morning. I think we have a poor reception. Do well to call us back if we need to say the truth to ourselves. But that means we need to declare the 36th state of emergency. We have it in Zamfara State, where because of the issue of insecurity, the network needs to be cut because of issues like this. We have in Yobe State, where people are even running from their properties. People are running to look out for where they can be safe. We have issues like this.
Just yesterday, we had 16 people killed and some houses razed in Katsina.
And also in Kaduna State, we have issues like this every day. We have issues of people being killed in all the states, and we had nothing about this, to the extent that even the governors, the northern governors, had a meeting in Kaduna State, and they never said anything about the killings that happened in Kaduna State. What are we doing as a country? Where are we going to? And we're talking about declaring a different state of emergency, talking about declaring Anambra state of emergency. Then what happened to other states? That means we need to declare those states also, because when you talk about the property, lives and properties that need to be secured. Also, those people in those states, also their lives and their properties need to be held utmost. Their lives and property need to be secured. Not just the lives of Nigerians in Anambra State, not just the lives of citizens in Anambra State. Other states that this killing is taking place. We have places also that they have silent killings. People just go out. You won't come back. Look at in the east yesterday when we had issues of when you board car at the park, they take you to kidnappers. All these things are happening. Then what are we doing about it? If we really need to declare Anambra State as a state of emergency, then other states also, like Anambra State, like Niger State, like Yobe, like Kaduna State, then we should declare those states also state of emergency. The attention should not be diverted to a particular state. It should be for all. It should be for those places that these killings are taking place. Then security should be utmost. And also, now we had issues yesterday where securities are deployed in Anambra State because of this election and the local government campaign that is kicking off today. Then security also need to be in those other states in the northern parts of this country. And also, it should be declared state of emergency so that we should look out for ways we can curb this insecurity and the killings of life and even taking away of properties in these places.
Of course, and just like Afenifere, Falana had said, emergency rule does not empower Buhari to remove Anambra governor. I just believe we should always go back to the book. We should go back to what the paper or the constitution is saying about these things. Is that what the constitution would agree to? If that's what the case may be, then it should be considered. And just like you've mentioned, we have other states where insecurity is hitting hard and people are killed that nobody is saying anything about it. We are not saying killing people is a good thing and it shouldn't happen to any state. It shouldn't happen to people in Anambra. It shouldn't happen to people in any part of the country. But what happens if it happens? And if it happens, what are we doing about it, or what are we saying about it? Why should we be one-sided in this issue of killings? Just like one of the audience that called the other day who said that the killings in Kaduna has no response from anybody. Nobody is saying anything, and now killings are going on in Anambra. We're looking at the upcoming election coming on November 6th, and now the federal government is threatening to declare the state of emergency. Let's go back to the books. What is the book saying? Let's go by the book, because we can't have laws guiding us and we neglect them when issues like this come up at the end of the day. And then looking at this story on 2022 budget, where we see that the federal government is saying, or the Minister of Finance rather, is saying we should expect more borrowing to finance the 6.258 trillion naira deficit. You know, it's really sad that we have to come to this point. And then looking at 2022 budget, I mean, this is a budget that we are doing ahead of time, and now we are talking of borrowing. We're not done with 2021 and we're talking of borrowing in advance. And just like the Minister of Finance had said that the revenue of Nigeria could barely accommodate services, noting that despite the concerns, its borrowing are still within acceptable limits. It's really sad that we have to borrow to pump into some sectors and projects that are ongoing in the nation. But what happens when we don't get profits? I mean, you are supposed to have a capital. At the end of the day, you invest it, and when you invest in something, you expect returns, you expect positive profits to come out of it. What happens when we keep borrowing to invest in these projects, to put into these projects, and at the end of the day we get nothing in return, and then we go back to borrowing again? Really, the system is broken. Something is wrong somewhere. And if we're pumping money into these sectors and nothing is coming out of it, why should we keep borrowing to fund these sectors? Why should we keep borrowing to fund these projects? Why don't we look elsewhere? Why don't we invest in other things that would give us a profit at the end of the day, and we wouldn't have to go back to borrow. And instead of paying back the previous debt, we are still borrowing to accumulate more debt. I really do not know where Nigeria is headed at, looking at this issue of borrowing and looking at how we are threatening the future of tomorrow instead of securing tomorrow's future. For leaders of tomorrow, look at how youths in Nigeria are suffering from depression. It's because of all of these things. We have all of these things ravaging around us, and then we don't even have time to take care of ourselves. We don't have time to feed our minds with positive things that will help us to maintain our sanity. And that's why people are going into depression, and it's the young people that are going into depression. Then what will happen to the Nigeria of tomorrow if we lose all the young people to depression, if we lose all the young people to insanity, if we lose all the young people to all the bad things that are happening in the nation today? What will happen to the Nigeria of tomorrow? Who will be there to secure the Nigeria of tomorrow? We have to secure our future from today, because if we do not secure our future from today, there will be no future for Nigeria tomorrow. And the issue of borrowing really should be looked into.
But the question I will ask is, does that mean that we've not achieved anything in this year so far? That we have to borrow to fund 2022 budget? What are we doing? Where are we going to as a nation? Look at this issue of borrowing. When we talk about the money, the previous money we've borrowed as a country, where did we invest those money into? I know there was a time where Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala spoke about borrowing. It's not bad to borrow, but how you invest and how you use that money to yield out profit to you as a country, then you invest that profit in the growth of this country. Let's look at other countries that we borrow from. Why can't we ask them ways they have all this money to even borrow us as a nation? Let's look out for all those means that they can be on their own, be dependent on their self as a country, and even borrow other countries loan. But look at issue now. That's why you see Nigerians, even in other country, are being used as slave. Look at United Arab Emirates now, where 500 Nigerians lose their job onto that they have to renew their work visas. You see that Nigerians are even leaving the shore of this country and go to other countries because of lack of job. When you talk about employment, there's no employment. When you talk about the health sector, it's suffering. When you talk about food, there is no food in the country. Then where are we going to? Look at insecurity. It is the order of the day. We just put our attention on things that are not just important, things that will not help us to grow as a country. We keep going back and forth on naming the sponsors of Boko Haram. Up to date, they are not named. And we had where foreign countries helped us to bring out 5 sponsors of Boko Haram, but as a country we just cover it under the carpet, and we refuse to bring out those sponsors. We refuse to expose them. That means we are okay with issues of insecurity that is hitting us hard as a country. And I keep on saying that with insecurity getting every day, insecurity, we keep having issue of insecurity, the growth of insecurity. We cannot grow as a country because people will be scared to come and invest. And when you have investors in our country, it will help us in growth. It will help us in having infrastructure. It will help us in having industries, and it will help to curb issues of unemployment for people. You spoke about depression. Youths are running into depression because after school there is no work, and you have responsibility, you have needs. How will you meet up to those needs? That's why you see people going into illegal activities. That we are not justifying illegal activities, but these are results of people going into illegal activities. People abusing drugs because of all this depression. Look at issues like this. We need to do something about it. When a sector is not going, why not invest in other sectors that you know that it will yield interest to you as a country, it will yield profits to us as a country? We keep having issue of VAT, where different states are talking about having this VAT going back to the state. Hello? To be used for growth and development.
On the line. Hello? Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Please speak up. Hello, are you still on the line? Please speak up and go straight to the point. I think we're having a bad reception there. You can call us back as we are still live on the show, and you can also send in your comments. We are also live on Facebook.
But when we borrow money like this in the name that it's borrowed to develop the country, when with the name that is borrowed to develop different sector, but you see that after we get this funds, people still mismanage this fund. People put themselves first and take the ones they will use for themselves, use for their family. Then how will we grow as a country? Look at different sectors dying, dilapidated, no growth, no development, no restructuring in our country. Something needs to be done about it, because for how long will we continue to borrowing this money, accumulating this debt, for which generation to come and pay? Now as a country, there's no development. Look at different states, there are no infrastructure. Different states, the education is suffering. Okay, then how do we expect to get this money that want to pay those education students the stipends that the federal government promised them? Well, as a country, we don't even have money. Then how do we start paying these people? We just give them expectation and make their hopes high, and later on we will not implement all those promises we've made, and it looks like a failed nation. Something needs to be done about it. We should not promise what we know that we cannot do. And this has to do with the issue of borrowing.
Hello?
Something needs to be done about all these.
Our caller is back on the line. Hello, good morning. Hello, please, can you speak up? Good morning. We're still having a bad reception there, and still looking at this issue of borrowing. Really, it's disheartening, and Nigerians are agitating over this today, and really we are still praying and hoping that something would be done. Mr. Uche from Akwa Ibom, good morning. Hello, Mr. Uche, can you speak up, please?
Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning, please speak up, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you? How is work?
Fine, thank God. Please go straight to the point.
Please, it's about this Nigerian borrowing. Nigeria has passed in a level of borrowing every time. I don't know whether they know that that president that used to borrow this money now is creating a problem to another president that is coming. Because if the president that is on that seat now did not pay all the money that is borrowed, the next one that is coming will face that challenge, and that one who.
Hello, Mr. Uche. Are you still on the line? Please speak up. I think we lost Mr. Uche there. And then looking at all of these things, despite all the killings, issues of insecurity, banditry, kidnap and rape, all of these things that causes deaths in the past years, we still have Lassa fever killing 725 in 5 years. The disease prevalence in Ondo, Edo, Ebonyi. We have another caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please speak up and go straight to the point.
ECWA, calling from Delta State.
Thank you. How is Delta State this morning?
Yes, I really appreciate this program talking about the borrowing. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Please speak
me?
up. Yes. You can go ahead, please.
In terms
We
of
can
that
hear
borrowing,
you.
it doesn't make sense when there's enough money in the country. Most of the past governors, the senators, and Fed members, local government chairmen, they were stealing money. Money was seized by EFCC. At the end of the day, they take them to court. They'll do one or two things. We are not hearing any good thing about the money. That money now, it belongs to one person who EFCC cannot give account of money that will be seized for most of the politicians they earn. They now went to go and borrow again. Look at the hardship in the country. From the primary school to the secondary school is finished. Hungry. People are suffering. And when they borrow the money now, the politician will steal the money again. The same thing will face again. Then when you see at the end of the day, most youth fall out of school. They're not into robbery, courtesy, turn bandit. At the end of the day, they will not really say one or two things is going on. The youth are too lazy. The youth are not lazy. Look America, for instance, today. Look how much they give, how many dollars they give to a citizen a day. But Nigeria don't do that. Food price, everything is getting high every day. Transport, the same thing. No light, no road. And at the end of the day, in short, there are many things that I don't want to say more, so that they will not think I'm offending them or I'm insulting anybody. But I really appreciate this program.
Thank you.
In short, I don't want to say more because I'm very, very angry. When I enjoy what you people are, this program you are doing better, I really want to contribute. That's why I'm saying something.
Thank you so much for airing your views this morning.
Talk to them.
Thank you. It's really obvious that our caller is not happy with the state of the nation, and so is everybody out there. The country needs restructuring, there's no doubt about that. And still on the issue of borrowing, there are sectors that we are supposed to. Mr. Uche is back on the line. Can you speak up, please? Hello, Mr. Uche, please speak up. We can hear you clearly.
Hello?
Yes, please go straight to the point.
Okay. So what I was trying to say, see, this borrowing Nigeria is borrowing. This thing will cause a lot of things in Nigeria to be hard. Many things. It's because of all this borrowing that getting harder. Look at exchange going up. It's because of borrowing. Look at price of foodstuff, many things. They are putting money. It's because of all this borrowing. Let them stop all these kinds of borrowing. Let them stop it. It's not good. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Uche, for airing your view this morning. We appreciate your call. It's really sad that Nigeria is indirectly being enslaved with the issue of borrowing, and we don't know where we're headed out tomorrow, but we still pray and hope. Ask God for his prevalence, it should intervene. And then talking about sectors that we can actually invest in, look at the health sector too. I believe the health sector is one sector that if we invest so much in, tomorrow Nigeria will not be talking about the issues of borrowing, because we still have Lassa fever killing this number of people. Just within 5 years, we lost 725 people to Lassa fever, and there's poor preparation, weak response systems responsible for high fertility rate. Hello, good morning. We lost our caller there from Oyo State. And then looking at this issue of weak response systems, you know, it is really sad that the health sector is not giving priority in Nigeria. If only we can give a quick response and an eligible one for that matter to the health sector, we tackle some of these issues of health that really can be avoided or can be eliminated totally. Trust me, we will attract people from other countries and they would admire the health sector. Hello, Mr. Abdul, good morning.
The issue of this borrowing. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, Mr. Abdul. Please speak up. Go straight to the point.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Abdul. Can you hear us, please?
Hello?
We can hear you clearly. Please go straight to the point. I think Mr. Abdul is having a bad reception. We can hear you clearly. You can do well to call us back. So looking at this health sector, really, if we invest in the health sector, trust me, it will attract people from other parts of the world, from within Africa and even beyond. Because really, we have other things that we are supposed to be worried about. We have other sectors that are supposed to be invested in, not these sectors that we've been borrowing, we've been investing in. At the end of the day, there's no gain coming out of it. Just like we had the issue of the caller that talked about accountability. Even the EFCC itself cannot account for some monies or funds that were pumped into some sectors, some politicians who had cases of looted funds. At the end of the day, we just hear that this amount of money was recovered and we do not hear anything again. Why don't we use all these looted funds that are being recovered, invest them in some sectors that were left behind, some sectors that have been neglected in the years past, and then we see the result that comes out of it? Because really, Tosin, if we continue like this, trust me, slave trade might come back, because the issue of borrowing is getting out of hand. And what are we doing to pay back this debt that is being accumulated? What would the next government come and do in office if we keep borrowing like this and we are not doing anything whatsoever to pay back at the end of the day? Something should be done.
Obviously, but look at the education sector also. We prefer to send our children to foreign countries to go and study. Let's look at an example where we had Ghanaians in our country, where they were slaves in the country, but when they went back and they fought this fight because this battle is theirs. And look at Ghana now. We even have students, Nigerians, who prefer to go to Ghana and study, go to Togo, go there to study. How did they achieve this development? How did they achieve this rapid growth? Why can't we ask those people? We keep recycling the same people in government. We keep having those same people that have the interest of just themselves. Look at the senators, look at our local government chairman, look at the reps. They are living their life. They are driving flashy cars. They're not concerned about what we are passing through as a country. If only they can sit down and say, what is all this? Let us contribute among ourselves. Let us look for ways we can get out of this problem we are going through as a country. But that is not their priority. That is not their problem. And now thank God, now we have in Anambra State where they've started the local government campaign. This is time for those people to shine their eyes. This is time for those people not to be carried away by what those people will bring to them, by the flashy things, by the material things, the things they need presently, what they will give to them. This is time for them to know that the 4 years, this 4 years is not just 4 days. They should be wise enough to bring in the right government, because we are tired of all this problem. Just as our callers keep on saying, who are we accumulating this debt for? Who will pay? From which sector? All sectors. Look at our road. We don't have a road. And they are now used as hideouts, as trap by bandits. Where are we accumulating? Who will pay all this money when nothing is working as a government? Then how will we pay all this debt? We need to be set. This is time for us to really shine our eyes, and we need to be wise. Thank God we have 2023 is by the corner. We should not sell our vote. That is the time we have the power. Our power should come to play. We should use the power we have, which is our voters card. And those that have not gone to have their voters card, please go to the nearest points. Have your voters card, because that is the power you have. You keep on complaining, you can't do anything. But 2023 is the time you need to use that power to bring in the right government. And we need God's intervention to help us, because on our own we cannot do this. We need God to help us in fighting this battle, because the battle is His, and it has overpowered us as Nigerians.
Thank you so much, Tosin, and thank you to our callers for calling in this morning to air your views. We appreciate you for your support, to always tune in and watch from the dailies on ECWA TV Africa. That's all the package we have for you today. As you continue with your daily activities out there, do not forget that peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Let's all have this understanding and give peace a chance, for there's no alternative for peace. Have a blessed day ahead.